All right, live at 7 o'clock, PBR Monday. Let's give the room a moment to populate. As you can see here, this show has a lot more class tonight than it normally does, and you haven't even seen everybody yet. We got an all-star cast tonight. So instead of just wasting a perfectly good hour of your life that you could never get back with one knucklehead, you get to waste it with my beautiful wife for a while, Mr. Jim Spooner, and we've got a special guest going to come on in a few minutes to talk to you guys about some Day 12 stuff. DC is in the house. There you go. I don't know who DC is, but that's okay. As always, give StreamYard your credentials if you're coming in through the Tour of Idaho Facebook page. If you're coming in from the Motorcycle Jazz Facebook page or YouTube, it's a little more difficult to do. You might just want to make sure that you put your name on your comments. Dwayne Coulter, there you go, DC. Now it makes sense. So what we're going to do tonight is I've got a few announcements I'm going to make, and then we have a guest we're going to bring on for about 5 or 10 minutes tonight to talk about something I think you'll want to hear. But mostly we're just going to do a Q&A this week, and that's all I'm going to do next week. When teams actually start rolling, we'll talk about team progress and stuff like that. Hey, Sean, how are you doing? It was good to see you in the Riders meeting the other day. On that subject, I'm only going to do 5 Riders meetings this year. I've done 3 so far, and 2 of them had 0 attendance. So we're going to have 2 more. There's one tomorrow, and I think I scheduled it for noon. Then I'll schedule one for later in the week. What happens if you don't attend one? Well, you don't get the information that's in the Riders meeting. I mean, it's not like I'm going to DQ you or anything, but I think they're worth coming to. And I did exactly what I told everybody I was going to do. I posted up the notification in the thread on the forum where you register, and most of you should get a notification anytime anything's posted there. So there's one tomorrow at noon, and then I'll do one later in the week at a different time of day, probably later in the evening or something. So with that, let's get into the announcements so that Jim and I can get going and bring in our guest. It's been really hot everywhere along the tour route. We finally had some fires start to break out a few days ago. There's a big one burning up near North Fork. It's really hot down here, so it went from like cold and rainy to kind of hot really quick, and things dried out really fast. So I know that we're going to have some fire hazard along the tour this year, but this is the time of year when my DMs and my inbox really starts to light up, because I have all these people sending me these panic-stricken woe is me emails. Well, I just noticed that there's a fire. Well, wow, that's an observation right there. We have fires along the tour all the time. And when you're out on the tour, I'll take that stuff a lot more seriously. But this is how ridiculous it gets. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had a guy send me an email, and I swear by most solemn oath that it said the following: there's a fire burning in your area. You haven't posted any information about it. What are you going to do about it? And the guy was right. I mean, I could literally see the fire from my backyard. It was burning inside of my house. Now, the reason that I had no intention of doing anything about it is because I knew it was going to be put out in plenty of time for the tour, which was 3 weeks away from starting at that point. So all I can tell you is, yeah, fires are cropping up this year. There'll be a few. There's ways around them. We have fires every year, and there's always a way around it, so just don't worry about it. We'll deal with it when that comes up. But the stuff that's burning right now might not be a problem in 2 weeks, when there's no team that's going to be anywhere near anything that's on fire right now until the end of July. I think the last day of July is when teams are going to start rolling through that area, and we'll deal with it when that comes up. Oh, my goodness gracious, the Lee brothers are here. These guys are awesome. The Lee brothers, I've actually ridden some with these guys. We've ridden down south a little bit, done some desert ride together. They are, they would have done the tour twice. They've officially done it once. They would have done it twice, except they had a transmission blowout way up north. And these guys are a couple of real dudes. They are 2 of my favorite people, and I hope to get to ride with them a lot more in the coming years. We had an awesome time ride the Mojave Road about a year or so ago. So that's my only announcement tonight. Look, don't worry about stuff that you can't control. Fire crops up, we'll figure out a way to deal with it. Jeff's here. Kentucky's in the house. Fire, flood, famine, all these biblical events that happen every year. We will find a way to deal with it, I promise you. So don't, right now, the thing you should be worried about is, do I know how to use all of the stuff that I'm going to be taking with me? Have I thought carefully enough about stuff that I want to leave behind? How's my nutrition? How's my body feeling? Stuff like that. And with that, I want to start. One thing that you probably don't know about my co-host tonight, Jim Spooner. All of you know he's a Tour of Idaho finisher. He's a soloist, and it's one of the most compelling trips ever last year. First guy through as a soloist, which is legend stuff all by itself. Jeff Jensen has tried that a couple of times. But he had to saw his way through a lot of stuff. We dealt with fires, and on the fly, we fixed a lot of stuff. But what you guys don't know about Jim, and a real reason that I wanted to bring him in tonight for this Q&A, is that he's a personal trainer. In fact, why don't you tell everybody what you do for a living, Jim?
Well, I'm an athletic trainer. I'm the head athletic trainer for Washington State University football. So involved in kind of all the pieces of student-athlete health and welfare. So from the sports performance medicine side. So basically do a lot of collaborating with nutrition on staff, strength and conditioning coaches, physicians, mental health, all kinds of different pieces of it. So kind of orchestrate the band per se of everything that goes into caring the development for the student athletes.
So here's your chance tonight to ask a genuine expert on fitness, nutrition, mind and body training for something like the Tour of Idaho, because there's no one in our community that's more qualified to answer those questions than Jim here. When I was talking about doing this keto diet, when Megan and I were talking about it, I talked to Jim about it when he was in town a little bit last year about the whole keto thing, and everything that he told me about it was spot on. Somebody asked a question about keto last week, and since I am not an expert, I defer those questions to people that are. All I can tell you is that I checked with people like Jim, a couple of doctors of my own. My wife's a medical professional here. We looked into it really carefully, and it turned out to work great for us. I've lost nearly 40 pounds on keto in 18 months. But when you have to be aware that it's a lifestyle change. It's not just a diet. You're doing something that's fundamentally different. And it does have some drawbacks. There are some things that you're doing to your body that you're going to have to monitor pretty carefully when you go into keto. And let me tell you something, too. Don't ever go to the drive-through at some place like Taco Bell and trust them to fill up your soda. Because if you get a sugar soda, going out of ketosis and back into it is not the most fun thing in the world, especially when you do it something like that. So we had some people last week, Jim, that asked a question, and maybe it'll come up again after the intro that I gave you. What are some things that you could be doing right now that would help you prepare for this mentally and physically? And probably right now we're talking about more mentally than physically, but, you've ridden it. You know what the enormous energy requirements are, the caloric requirements, and the things that you have to be able to do to your mind and body to get through it. And nobody has a better feel for that than you do, because you had to saw your way through most of it last year. So if you wouldn't mind, talk about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I think at this point, for what are we about 2 weeks for the first team right now?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, or
yeah,
a week or whatever here.
The first team is coming through, I think it's the 24th or the 25th when they set out. It's a team of a couple of guys that are returning. I think we called them Sawdust this year.
Okay. Yeah, at this point, I think, if you were into trying to reduce some weight on yourself, that's not the time at this point here. I think you really want to be looking at getting yourself kind of comfortable, hydrated at this point. If you're a week out, this is when we're starting. For us in the football world, everything's a week-to-week deal, and we're starting that right away. We're starting our hydration stuff now. Because once you start the tour, you can drink all that you think you're drinking. You can carry whatever electrolyte solution, drink whatever you want. You're going to progressively just become dehydrated as the tour goes on. That's just
good advice.
The fact of it is how hot it is, how hard you're going to be working, how long you're out there. That's going to be the situation. So the more you can get ahead of yourself right now, I think is key coming into it. And mentally, it's being comfortable being uncomfortable, because when it gets hard, and you're frustrated and you're on a side hill by yourself in the middle of nowhere, um, you got to be able to calm down, think clearly through some things, and not let things snowball even mentally. I mean, yeah, things can snowball from event, get behind schedule, and all that, but you can't get in a stressful situation and let that start deteriorating where you are mentally, because it's a grind just doing the ride. And I'm by no means do I consider myself a great rider. Um, I think I survived what I survived a lot just on where I am physically, physically and mentally. I've done things. I was a wildland firefighter for 8 summers. I was comfortable being uncomfortable, working 36-hour shifts, not eating much, eating an MRE, being out of water, having to kind of just push through, because that's really the only, when you're in that situation, that's your only option. And I think if you can work on yourself, clearing your mind, getting a little bit of mental fortitude here in the next few weeks, and being prepared for things to go wrong. Because that's if you can mentally accept that, hey, things are not going to go as planned, you're going to be in a lot better place when they go wrong and when things have to change. If you assume it's all going to be peachy keen and you're going to sneak through and on schedule, everything's going to go great, you're going to have a rough time when a reroute happens, you have a mechanical, you're off the side hill, something, you make a wrong turn and end up out of the way, whatever it might be. There's a lot of things that can kind of pop up that become there. So that's kind of my advice right now, is we're getting pretty close to that. But I wouldn't, unless I was rolling out late August, I wouldn't be worrying about trying to drop 10 pounds right now, and trying to get in a little better spot to hit the route, trying to stave some weight off yourself. So I'd be more worried about going lean on your gear than anything else.
You just said something, and I want to ask Megan a question to back it up in a minute. Something you just said is, I think, incredibly important, and we've all touched on it, but I think you just articulated it the best way I've ever heard. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable to do things like this. And I've long maintained that a lot of guys, including me, that have finished the tour aren't that great a rider. I mean, we're not racers. I don't have a bunch of dirt bike race trophies on my wall or anything. I'm just a guy that likes to ride trail. But the talent that I have is I'm very comfortable at being uncomfortable, because I didn't do it the way you did, but I was a climber my whole life, freezing in bivouacs, burning up on big walls without adequate water and stuff like that. And I learned how to deal with that. And something else you just said I think is incredibly important is, when things are going wrong, you got to be able to take a deep breath and slow things down. Don't let the situation get ahead of you. Stop. Unless you're rolling off that side hill, you can always stop, take a breath, assess what you need to do. And I think those are incredibly important things to be able to do. Understand you're going to be uncomfortable. Understand you are not in control of what happens out there. There's a lot of fate involved in this. There's no way in the world you can ride a perfect tour of Idaho. At some point, you're going to clip a peg. You're going to do something, and in retrospect, you think is stupid, but you're just tired, and you're trying to make some time, and stuff's going to happen. So thanks for saying that. What I want to ask you, and both of you, is what are some over-the-counter things that you think people should take? You're a pharmacist, and you're a trainer. What, in your opinion, and Jim, you go first, what are maybe some over-the-counter things that you could take with you in terms of nutrition, first aid, things like that you wouldn't be caught dead without? Jim, you're first.
I think anything along that electrolyte line, especially the stuff that's all powder-based now, because it's light and easy to pack. I was lucky. In the world I'm in, I have access to some things that aren't out there. We use a thing called Right Stuff that was originally developed for NASA. It's a liquid form of electrolyte additive that has about 3,600 milligrams of different electrolytes in it. So it's pretty high to stay in a liquid state. And that's what I would use. I mean, I wouldn't have been caught dead. That was every morning and every night. At least I had one to start the day and one before I went to bed. And there's different things along the way, different forms of that, and what you can grab. I know you're a big fan of Pedialyte. We use that in different pieces too, and they have a powder form now that you can add just to a bottle of water while you're going. I think those I wouldn't be caught dead with. I think you get your calories from wherever, as long as you have something that's high density calories. I mean, a chocolate bar or a protein, like it doesn't matter. Things that are easy to get to, easy to access, easy, they say bioavailability, easy for the body to break down, easy to get things to. So, um, I did a lot of energy chew stuff because they're easy to grab, throw in real quick, eat them, keep on moving. Um, I I didn't pack a lunch a lot of times. I just had what I had snack wise, and if we stopped for lunch, then if you had a spot that you could stop and get stuff. But on the days where it's all day, to be honest, I didn't pack a sandwich very often or anything like that, day to day.
Buckeyes
but
are the
what-
only guys that ever did that. The sandwich boys.
Yeah, I was like, nah, I don't got time for this. I'm just gonna eat on what I have, and that was when you're getting fuel, grabbing whatever they had selling for access to, if it was a granola bar, candy bar, stuff like that. At that point, you want a lot of carb stuff. It's easy to get to too, during the day, just to kind of keep you fueled for the day. Um, Gatorade has a new thing out. I mean, their basic stuff's priced that, but it's called Gator Lights, which has been in athletics for 15 years, and now they're selling it over the counter. It comes in a smaller bottle. It's high concentrate electrolyte solution drink that I actually use quite a bit when I could get it on, along the way. I grab one and throw it down real quick. Probably throw it in my pack. But hydration, electrolytes, a big thing. You can go without the food. You can't. Your body's going to shut down at some point when you become dehydrated. You can go without the food. It'll find a way to it'll break down it's going to break down fat and muscle to get what it needs. And then you supplement along the way. But the hydration part, that's what's going to get you.
So you and I have had this conversation before, and I think we're on the same page about this. I tell people you are going to be in such caloric debt, it almost doesn't matter what you eat. Just find something to eat. It's all calories. So it doesn't have to be the $5 organic energy bar. It can be anything. You got to just eat what you can shovel down and keep going. So whatever you eat that makes you feel good, it doesn't matter whether it's loaded with sugar or not. Your body's going to break it down because you're in such caloric debt. Do you basically agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you're out there. You just want to eat what you get your hands on. I mean, when I rolled into Lowell, they didn't have anything branded fancy. I grabbed they were about ready to close, and I grabbed a couple random $5 microwave dinner things, pounded them down, and a couple things, I don't know, about 4 candy bars or whatever they had, and that's what I had for the next day, And I think I had a can of Spam I grabbed because I knew I was spending the night probably at that point at Cedars. So I was like, can of Spam goes a long way. It's pretty
Did you drink any of that
I'll
water? Did you drink any water out of the well at Cedars?
I refilled at Cedars. I filtered water the whole trip. So
okay, if that water is the nastiest water out of that well in the world, I drank that once and it made me sick. I retched all the way up to Missoula Lake.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's why I was I was filtering everything. So nothing. I did not just drink it out of the stream, but I was filtering it along the way pretty much every day, at least once.
All right, so we got an actual pharmacist question here from Tyler Spaeth. We'll get to that in just a second. But I want to ask you, in terms of things for pain, over-the-counter things that you think guys ought to get, and maybe even some things they could get with a prescription from their doctor, what would you recommend that people bring, like for pain, to go to sleep at night, things like that?
I don't know how. I mean, melatonin obviously is like the best sleep aid because it doesn't last that long. You don't want to be tired the next day. It's over the counter. It works really well for people. You'll probably be tired anyway. So I think melatonin would be really good if you want sleep. But I would think that if I was going on something like this, I mean, I would want something for allergies if I had an allergy problem. Benadryl is going to make you tired. Don't want that. So you'd want like Zyrtec or Singular. Those are the ones that don't cross the blood-brain barrier. So
what about Fluticazine?
For nasal, yeah. Fluticazine is like the Shaz, yeah, for allergies and nasal symptoms. So if you have that, if you have any like anaphylaxis, you definitely want your Epipen and your albuterol inhaler. There was a question about like a muscle relaxer over the counter or for pain and stuff. So there really isn't anything over the counter that's a muscle relaxer. Most muscle relaxers, besides tizanidine, have a really long life and can make you really tired. I would think even ibuprofen can not be great for your kidneys if you're dehydrated. So if you could, I would try to use Tylenol if it does anything for you, or topical diclofenac. It's like Advil, but in a cream. Maybe that for your neck or your back. I mean, I would.
What about that stuff that I get as prescription, but those little bitty pills that I get from the doctor for muscle
Oh,
spasms?
cyclobenzaprine.
Cyclobenzaprine.
Yeah, it's amazing muscle relaxer, but it's gonna make you sleepy for a
Well,
long time.
one thing that, it's actually not that easy to go to sleep. You're so tired that you can't go to sleep
Oh,
sometimes.
really?
So that's why I like Benadryl, because at night, if I just lay there in my bed at night, my mind's going too much. Like you're still on the bike. You can still feel it. It feels really weird to not be on the bike, and you're laying there. And sometimes, unless I take the Benadryl, I'm up till like 3 in the morning, and I got to get going at 4. So I like Benadryl, but you are right. And I don't feel it the next morning. Like when I wake up after I take the Benadryl, I'm not tired, but I guess that's person specific, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if people like it, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to try it. But I mean, I'm a person that can fall asleep anywhere, so I feel it the next morning. But yeah, Benadryl could be, especially if you have allergies, a 2-for-1 at night.
So, how hard is it to get an EpiPen these days? Because I used to be able to get them pretty easily from a doctor, but I understand they're harder to get now and expensive. Is that right?
They are hard to get and expensive. I mean, if somebody on the tour legit needed one, I mean, they do expire kind of soon. I could try to look through our pharmacy for some. But I mean, if you really did have a bee allergy, I don't know, I'd definitely do something, or, to try to get one if that's.
There's one in my first aid kit always, but they're usually expired. They're a few years old. I don't know. What is the real shelf life for an EpiPen?
Oh, I don't know, like a couple years.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the ones I have
probably
already are no good
Probably.
then.
But I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just be less potent, so.
You can. One thing that I found out the hard way climbing once is that you may think that you're not allergic to bee stings or things like that. Everybody at some point is allergic. It's a matter of sensitivity to the protein. And if you see enough of that protein, at some point, you're going to become sensitive to it. Because I used to get stung by bees and hornets and wasps all the time when I was guiding in Kentucky. And then one summer, I got stung by a couple of hornets one day while I was guiding a climb. And I remember I had an unusual reaction, because normally it was like a mosquito bite. But my arm swelled a little bit. I didn't feel too good. 2 weeks later, I went into anaphylactic shock when I got stung by a hornet. So it's you. If you get stung a lot, you may be shaking it off. But at some point, and I got this explained to me really carefully, that at some point, if you get stung enough, if nothing else, you may not have an anaphylactic reaction, but you will have a poison reaction, because it builds up in your system a little bit if you get stung enough. So I've always carried an EpiPen. I guess I've just heard that mine aren't that great anymore, but I think an EpiPen is a good idea if you can get your hands on one.
Yeah, so somebody asked if the glass vial with Epi and then a needle with the filter, they are a lot less expensive. I mean, like, again, if somebody legit had an allergy, I would feel comfortable, like, preloading some that are already at the right concentration. The only thing is, in the epinephrine vial, it's like a full, like, your heart is stopped concentration versus the 0.3 milligrams. That's, anyway, it's a full milligram. So you just have to make sure you dilute it. I don't know if you'd be in that headspace to do that when you're like, can't breathe, but I would pre-fill them.
That's one. I mean, I've done it to myself. I give myself bang, right in the thigh before, and it saved me.
I mean, you'll live.
There's that's another one of those kind of things we tell people all the time. First aid, these are some things you should think about. Do you use epinephrine? I mean, do you have to do that to the athletes that you deal with every once in a while?
Yeah, we have a few guys that are typically most of our concern right now. We just got about a bunch of shellfish allergies that are pretty severe. So we have a couple guys that actually have like full-on emergency plans and all that kind of thing for managing that. So, but we probably had 6 or 7 EpiPens, stuffed around between our emergency bag and everybody's kind of got. And so, if you have any type of anaphylaxis, I got stung this weekend on the side of my head, just driving down the road. Bee came in and freaking stung me in the side of the head. I was like,
We went for,
of course that happens.
We went for a bicycle ride the other morning. She had a bee fly right into her neck right here, and she's got a big welt where it got her.
It still itches.
Yeah.
So let's see. We got a couple more questions, but then I want to shift gears a little bit and bring in our guest. Let's see.
We wanted to ask about 5-hour energy.
Yeah, 5-hour energy. Jake Hershey, thoughts on 5-hour energy as bonk recovery? What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big coffee guy, so I was like getting up, and if the hotel had coffee in it, I was making some black coffee before I hit the road. When fatigue sets in, guy, I mean, you're just it is what it is. I mean, a Red Bull, I guess, give you a little caffeine kick in the morning, a little taurine kick. I guess I'm more of a taurine guy, so I usually go towards Red Bull. It's a little more taurine heavy than caffeine. Taurine's a little bit better of a initial stimulant with less negative effects in the long term. I don't recall what they active, if it's caffeine or taurine based exactly in the 5-hour energy, but
it's taurine.
Is it taurine?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd say sure, especially if you're someone that's not using it on the regular, like using a pre-workout or something like that before you go in the gym. I think then you build up a little bit of tolerance to the volume that you need to actually get a stimulus response. But then you got to be careful, because if you go, I think it's about 570 some milligrams of caffeine a day is about the max that you can process that'll actually cause a try to benefit. You go over that and you start getting kind of diminishing returns. You get a little bit of overstimulant and a little bit, I call it foggy cognitively, because I think it has much more of a negative effect once you start getting like 1,000 milligram range and all that.
So taurine doesn't that contribute to kidney stones?
Taurine, I don't know. Is that a natural product? Because they don't teach us anything about that.
Yeah. Well, it's what.
Yes and no. It probably originally is naturally, but most of the time now I think it's made synthetically for this stuff.
Yeah, I when I talked to David Sewell, a urologist, about my football-sized kidney stone, he said one of the things, I told him that, I have been dehydrated a lot because of Tour Vito style riding, and I drank a lot of energy drinks exactly for the reasons that Jim and I are talking about right now, and he said that is a recipe for developing kidney stones.
I just think the dehydration, because it's just crystallizing, right? Things are out of solute.
Yeah.
So I think dehydration is probably got to be the biggest thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's switch gears here for a minute, and because we've got a guest that's been waiting for a long time that I want to bring in here, and this fella really, really has helped a lot, along with Jim, on the new Day 12 stuff. So let me bring in our buddy Andrew Hickson, who's here right now, and Andrew and Jim really have done all of you a tremendous service by constructing the new Day 12 route. It's so far north for me that it's like a full day drive just to get there. So I go up there, once every couple of years, try to ride some stuff. I'm going to try to get up this fall. What's really tough is to find people who will recommend the right kind of trails. So I've talked to guys up there before, and they recommend these trails that are like their favorite trail that they've got wired to the teeth that nobody can do on a fully loaded tour bike, especially late in the tour. So Jim, having ridden the tour, and Andrew having followed it and kind of understanding what the philosophy is, have given us some trails, and everybody that's been on these trails tells me they're fantastic. If they say it's hard, it's hard. So their challenge sections are very much worthy of being called challenge sections. But everything else is fine. It's just good, fun trail. It'll keep you on your toes. And these guys, I just went through everything that they sent me a couple of days ago, and I got it all written up. They went through it and said it looked good. And I'm looking forward to getting up there and trying some of this stuff myself. But I sent it out to a few other guys that had been in that area, and they said the loop that these guys put together for you on Day 12 is just simply epic. A couple of tour guys have spent a lot of time up there, and they said this stuff is the real deal. So first of all, on behalf of everybody, thank you both very much. Why don't you, without getting into specific, because this is a mystery day, but why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you went about putting this stuff together, and maybe in a really general sense, some things that people can expect on this day. I think it's okay to say it starts in Superior and it ends in Wallace. And other than that, you're on your own. There is a place you can stop and get fuel in about the middle of the day.
Now I'll let you
Yeah.
go, Andrew. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair statement. I mean, it starts in Superior and, like you said, ends in Wallace. I've been riding these trails a lot, and I started kind of following the tour. I was last year. Had a buddy at work that got me hooked on it, and then I went and bought a new bike just because of it, because I wanted to do the tour. So I kind of got jumped in hook, line, and sinker. But yeah, it was kind of fun to I've watched the night videos and watched David Powell's videos, and kind of see what's on there, and then get try to gauge what to put on there. And the trails we put on, I think, are going to be it's going to be a good loop. A lot of stuff on ridge tops, a lot of going down into canyons, back up to the ridge top. I mean, hope the guys like climbing and going down, because there's a lot of climbing and going down. Good switchbacks, good creek crossings, gorgeous scenery. Good exposure in places. We may have kept a certain peak that's got a lot of bear grass on it that might possibly be, on the route if a person wants to do it. I was up there a couple weeks ago, and there's still snow on top of some peaks up there. It's probably getting close to being gone now, but yeah, a lot of, I love riding. Every time I go ride, I just love riding those trails up there, and I'm excited to get a ride some more of Idaho. That's I'm excited about doing the tour next year. I really wanted to do it this year, but just like Martin said, we were talking earlier, and I had some conflicts come up, had no vacation planned with the family and stuff, so it didn't work this year. But I'm all in next year to try and explore more of Idaho. I appreciate Martin that he's doing it one more year, so I get a chance to take it on. Hopefully I can do it. I got one shot to try it, so hopefully I can get through it.
You are the only reason I'm not riding my bicycle across the country next year.
You don't know how much I appreciate that.
There were some people, I wanted to give everybody plenty of time to get in one last lick. And to be perfectly honest, there is a point in time when you've kind of checked out of something. And that's where I am with this right now. I've done it for so many years. I'm kind of ready to just let it exist on its own and move on. But I owe people, especially like you, that have put a lot of work into it, a shot to get that jersey number. So, and you better make it next year, because I am riding across the country in 2024. But
I'm going to put everything I can into it.
Well, there are some people that I feel pretty good about, and I think you understand what's going on. After I met Jim last year, I said, well, that guy will make it. I turned to everybody else and said, we're going to have our soloist be a finisher for sure. You can kind of tell after a while, because we've all talked about this a lot, but it bears saying again. The people that I have my doubts about are really, really talented racers. These guys that come in and they don't understand this isn't like 6,000 laps around a racetrack that's got trees in it. This is something completely different. And the only team of racers that two teams, Michael Knight and his team, I kind of knew those guys a little bit, and I knew they were going to be just fine because they're just superbly talented riders. They're kind of like trail riders that also happen to be excellent racers. And then Kerry Barton's team. They did such a thorough job of preparing that I didn't have any doubts about them whatsoever. But when I meet guys that are principally trail riders that don't talk about how fast they are, but, they look like they can kind of pick up a bike and huck it up a switchback if they need to, I know those guys are going to be just fine. Again, thank you so much for both of what you did. I guess, Jim, what do you want to add to what Andrew said about day 12 this year? Are they going to like it, or are they going to be calling you guys names when it's all done, like they call me names?
Well, I think some guys might be calling me names, but I don't think we're too worried about it. But I don't, and I think if they make some certain choices, they won't be happy.
Exactly.
But, just put it that way. But I was not gonna. My opinion was I am not gonna let anyone say, well, that wasn't a challenge section. So just be prepared for it to be challenged. Let's put it that way. It's not impossible. It's going to be a challenge.
Not impossible. I've been up. I've ridden all the trails that are on the challenge sections.
So.
I was looking at that the other day when I first opened it up, and Andrew, you missed out on this, but I PM'd Jim right away, and, looking at the first challenge section, and I snorted an entire Diet Mountain Dew all over the desk here when I saw what had happened there, and I still think that's funny as hell. If you don't think these challenge, there's 2 on that day too. There's 2 challenge sections, and there's at least 2 bonus sections. 1, 2.
There's 3.
Yeah.
3. Yeah, 3 bonus
Yep.
sections, including the one that I put in, right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's 3 bonus sections and 2 challenge sections. So you can get a lot of points that last day. And if you stay on the regular route, it's a very doable day. But all I can tell you is that if you decide to do either of those challenge sections, and I have done one of them, but not the other, that first challenge section is ridiculous. I haven't done the second one. But the only time I ever did that first challenge section, I rolled all the way down one side of it. And I don't think I own the record.
Probably not. And there's a few people on that record for sure.
And going up the other side is just ridiculous. I've ridden it down both ways. I haven't ridden like down one way and up the other. I've ridden down from both sides. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
I've ridden it both ways. As long as it's sought out, that's the big thing. I mean, and that's a crapshoot. We're going to try and get in there, and I want to try.
We're going to try to get to a lot. I do have an email into Tracy up here to see what they're working on. I mean, to hopefully not waste too much time, but I'm going to spend about 3 days this weekend trying to get through as much of it as I can. We rode some of it a couple weekends ago. Opened up a couple stuff, and so it'll be good. I mean, it's going to be some great single tracks, some great views. To be honest, I think by the time you get to day 12, this side hill, most of the side hill you get up here is going to feel pretty comfortable from everything you've been through to that point. So, I mean, as comfortable as you could get. Sometimes certain ones out there will be a little bit interesting, but with some nice stuff, I think people will be happy kind of share some of that and get that out there. And I think people will enjoy it. So it's a good day of some quality single track.
And when you get to Wallace, I guarantee you will be happy to get there. You're going to be real happy to see Donna. It's your penultimate day of the tour, and I think what these guys have given this Tour of Idaho community is nothing but an upgrade, because I didn't know those trails up there. I knew there was some single track there, but most of the stuff I've ridden, I rode in the middle of the night. So, the first time I ever did, we had a trail that used to be on there called Stevens Peak. I've done Stevens Peak twice, but never in daylight. It's always been dark. So the side hill doesn't mean anything to me because I couldn't see it. What meant something to me is there's a big rock there that used to bounce me about 5 feet up into the air every time I rode over it.
Still there.
Yep.
Is it? I'm glad I couldn't see what was off the left side, because everybody tells me if you ride it in daylight, you're a lot more concerned.
For sure. It's a little ways down there.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, you got anything else that you want to tell everybody while you're here, bud?
Just good luck, everyone. I hope you guys all have a good tour and enjoy it as much as you can, and enjoy riding Idaho single track. It's the best single track ride in the world, at least, from my opinion.
You got that right. So we have a question here. Justin Reed, what's the approximate mileage for the day? I got about 150 if you stay on the regular route. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think that's about right. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's I think it's not a long day for sure, but it's a good chunk of single track. I think it's going to be, and like Andrew said, I mean we're taking you up some draws, onto the ridge, and then across down another, and back up, and working your way into some. There's just some good pockets of stuff to get to, and so it's a lot of transitioning drainage to drainage.
Yeah. One of the things that about that too is that mileage is a little deceptive, and when I send you the route description in the mail, it says right in the written write-up, this is a little bit deceptive because there are a couple of long transfer sections on it that are kind of fast. You'll enjoy them, but you spend maybe a third of that time on pretty fast transfer section. Once you get off the transfer section, though, you're on continuous single track for long periods of time. Mm-hmm. So it's a really deceptive day. There are some other days that are like that, too, that have these fast transfer sections, but you might be on single track for 30 or 40 miles at a time, jump on a quad trail, then get on more single track for another 25 miles. So it's a very, very deceptive day when you talk about the distance. I don't think it'll feel like a 150-mile day. I think it'll feel a lot longer.
Yeah. When we were
Especially
starting
at that
together,
point.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, I was gonna say, especially at that point. I mean, that definitely went into our thinking too. You know, for being through it and know how tired I was on day 11, let alone on day 12 and 13 now, to know what what you want the ride to be, what do you want to be riding on those kind of days. I mean, it's still going to be a challenge. You're going to have you're going to be probably fighting some brushing spots. You're going to have some pretty gnarly single track that's pretty skinny and with some bear grass around it, which is always, regardless if it rained or not, is all the same. It's all the same slick. But it's nothing that we're going to try to. We're not trying to eliminate anybody on day 12 of the route. You know what I mean? So.
Unless they need a point, then
Yeah, you might eliminate yourself then, because there's only one of those bonuses that I would consider doing at that point. The other two, I don't think I would. At that
I
point,
rode the last bonus a week ago, going backwards on it, so going down instead of up, but it's logged out and looks pretty good and stuff. So
okay. Well, Andrew, thank you very much for joining us tonight. If anybody else has any questions specifically for Andrew, ask now or forever hold your peace. If not, we're going to go back to just talking with Jim about some last-second prep. And while we're waiting to see if anybody pops up, Andrew, once again, from the bottom of my heart, I cannot thank you enough for what you gave us. You're a super good dude to work with. You're a good human being. And the thing about Andrew is he's incredibly modest. I'm sure the guy rides great, but all I ever hear is, I'm just a guy that likes to ride trail. And when I hear guys like that, I'm afraid automatically, because I know they can kick my ass.
Oh, he rides good. He rides good.
Yeah, I know he does. It's always those modest guys. You talk to Jimmy, and if you didn't know who he was, you'd figure out he's some geezer that doesn't know how to ride a motorcycle at all. And I think that guys like that they just go out and put the boots to it when it's time to do it. Andrew's that guy, so I'm happy to hold it open for another year just for you, partner.
Well, I sure appreciate it. I appreciate Megan. I appreciate you letting Martin do it for another year for me. So
for sure, yeah.
Do you remember the time when we were first dating, a long time ago? God, way back in the middle 2000s. It was one of the first few years that we did the tour. Like right after we met and started dating, I said, would you mind going to Wallace and being my ride back? I'm going to do the tour of Idaho. And she goes, well, what's that? And I said, well, just can you be at Wallace on this day and pick me up? And that's when the tour went all the way from Lowell to Wallace in a single day, along what was substantially the route until this year. So all that single track, up above Lowell was on there. And some of the single track in the new day 12 was on it. Once you got to 391, the only single track that was on it was up right around the top of Moon Pass. There's some stuff, I think, on 16 up there. There used to be single track, and it was kind of nasty. It looks like maybe some of that's quad trail now. But Bullion Pass, maybe all the way over to Moon Pass. I remember some single track sections in there, and, of course, the infamous Stevens Peak. So for fast guys, they're getting into Wallace at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night with a 4 a.m. start. For guys like me, it's 2 and 3 in the morning. And she had a room at the the Ryan. At what time did I show up?
I don't know. But you were not in your right mind. I'd never seen you like that.
It was like 4 in the morning. And I'd been bonking since about 10 o'clock at night. I remember riding up that horrible road that goes up over Gospel Hill with the basketball-sized rocks, and I'm hammering it. I'm just trying to make time. And I was hallucinating so badly that I thought I was made out of carabiners, and I was indestructible. And at one point, coming across that road, I was fighting so hard to wake myself up. I was like pounding those 5-hour energies trying to stay awake. At one point, I stood up on the seat of my motorcycle. It was just like the most insane thing I've ever done. In my right mind, I would never do anything like that. But I stood up on the seat of my motorcycle because I thought it would scare me bad enough that I would wake up. Didn't work. And for anybody that thinks you cannot fall asleep riding a dirt bike, I can tell you it is entirely possible to fall asleep riding a dirt bike. And when I finally saw her, I was like 10 clicks into oblivion. It was just awful.
Yeah. And
No.
he's like, is peeing blood bad? I'm like, yes. It's bad.
Yeah. Michael Knight's video where they're going at Lowell, and he's like, I sound drunk. Oh, yeah. I was talking to myself a bunch out the second half, and I wasn't smart enough to have probably the GoPro going to get it recorded like Michael did. But I probably was saying some things that nobody would be like, what the hell are you talking about? So, yeah, I remember dozing off on the Magruder.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like
Jeff
this.
just said that. Jeff Stess is in here. I couldn't stay awake on the Magruder.
Oh, yeah, same thing. I was just like, I stopped finally. I finally stopped because you're not sure if you're seeing things or not. Is that 20 adventure bikes coming at me, or is it 10? It was actually 20, but you're just like, I was out of it. I just could not wake up. Yeah, it was a struggle. So it's fact from Michael's right. I think you can damn near fall asleep on a bike. I've proven that.
So, Andrew, we're really making you look forward to this, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. Well,
I'm gonna keep pressuring him too. I'm like, so who's going? You got Tim? Like, you guys writing that? He's like, yeah, he's gonna get a bite. I'm like, you got to go do it.
Yeah, Jim rode with my riding partners over the 4th.
They'll be good. They'll be, if they get their bikes dialed and go light, they'll be fine.
Good deal. Dude, if you want to hang out with us, you can hang out with us till the end of the show if you want to. All right. Well, we'll leave you in here and you can participate in this Q&A as you will.
Sure.
I will tell all of you this. These stories that Jim and I are telling you and that Megan is telling you, we're not making any of this stuff up. Look, I spent 20 years doing pretty high standard climbing. I was a guide, instructed skiing in the winter. That's how I made my living. I wrote books, and I did some stuff that I'm pretty proud of. And the Tour of Idaho is as hard, if not harder, than any of that stuff that I did. When I was climbing big walls in remote areas, I could always fall asleep at night. Sometimes I was so exhausted that I'd jam myself behind a flake. I got a photo of a place I slept once where I just jammed myself in behind a flake. And if I looked down between my legs, I could see 3,200 feet to the ground. And I slept like a baby that night. On the Tour of Idaho, when I am 15 clicks into oblivion, standing up on my seat trying to get myself to stay awake, pounding these 5-hour energies, if you lay down beside the trail, you can't sleep. You're exhausted, but you can't sleep. There's something about when the motion of that motorcycle stops, you're on it for such long periods of time. I always have to take things to go to sleep at night. I got to take like 2 or 3 Benadryls to get myself to sleep. Did you have that trouble, Jim?
There was a couple nights I was out. Like when I hit Salmon, I fell asleep like dressed still. I was like, I went and ate dinner and I came back and I woke up like at 2:30 in the morning, dressed it like I was like, I didn't even remember. Maps were on the bed. I was out cold. But the night I stayed out at Cedars, it was past midnight, I think, when I finally fell asleep. And it wasn't like, cold, whatever. It was a fine night. I had a tarp, had my bivvy, was in some clothes. I was fine. I was tired. I just couldn't fall asleep. And I think part of it was thinking, I was thinking about day 12 or, what is day 12? And going, I knew it was coming. I mean, how many times did I tell you I'm saving my energy for Heller Simmons Divide? You'd be like, well, go ride this. And I'm like, I'm saving my energy for Heller Simmons Divide. Because I just knew, I was in my mind, I knew where it was thought to. And I was pretty confident no one else had been through. And then I got there and they went a little ways through, but I still had a solid 3 miles to go. And
oh my God.
I slept good in Wallace, I'll tell you that. I slept real good in Wallace.
Well, you're pretty much home free at that point too.
Yeah. I think you said, I think I passed you guys. You're right.
Yeah, I saw you. We were at the bottom right there at the start of the pavement. Me and my cousin were loading up our dirt bikes. We just ridden from
Was I
Wallace.
riding like this? with
Yeah.
my hand on my handlebar.
Look like
Just
death on
my
an
head
orange
down.
KTM.
There was a few times you just put your head down. Oh God, that was
So, well, let's see. We got a question here. Hey,
All right, so-
Andrew, Dylan Knight here from Team Piedmont. Can you offer a vague region that we should plan to download for our offline maps on TrailTech Voyager Pro? Let me take a stab at this. You guys tell me what you think.
Yeah.
I would look at the previous days that went through that area. Any previous year of the tour, we had a map of that area. And I would say if they went 50 miles anywhere in Idaho from the state line trail, they would be okay. Do you think that?
Yeah, I mean, what I carry with me, I have my cell phone a lot of times when I'm riding. I have Avenza maps, so then I have download some PDF maps. So I have the St. Joe National Forest PDF map, geo-referenced. That's what I carry with me a lot. So if you have the St. Joe National Forest map or the motor vehicle use map, either of those two are, great ones.
Martin, I'd say if you're gonna, for the guy to download that on, I'd say anything in that area, even 40 miles south of the state line in that area.
You could grab the Coeur d'Alene map too.
I mean, if you saw the route last year, you have a general idea of where the trails are, and so that I think that's a safe bet. I mean, when I was downloading and I knew the whole route, I still had enough of the corridor when I had to get off route, like on day 8 it was, to have to see what I had. So, I mean, you're starting in Superior, you're going to Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the MVUM and you'll have a pretty solid idea of what map you need to save. There's some areas that you can see, like, hey, there's not a lot of MUVM down there, maybe even very little in certain spots. So you should have an idea of kind of where you're going to be needing to look.
I was going to say the Coeur d'Alene MVM one's a good one because it's kind of got everything north of, the St. Joe and the Coeur d'Alene, they're right there on the divide. So both of those are kind of, good to look at, I guess, if I was going to look.
Yeah.
There's some road in the beginning, and the last time I rode that road, it's easy to find, but it's a pretty good ways. Isn't it like 30 miles from Superior to where things start to get interesting, or is it longer?
That's probably about that because I rode it.
Yeah.
I rode it last year when I went back in looking for the phone. I dropped off of Superior and rode up, and then rode out the route to Dry Saddle, and then back down to Superior. I'd say it's probably 25 to 30 miles.
Okay.
It's a healthy road haul in there.
Yeah, and it's fast too. I mean, it'll be a nice way to get going in the morning. You can drink some coffee, eat a bunch, and get going, and it's a fun ride too. I mean, it ends up in a fantastic place, so you'll enjoy it. Just be careful because that road is pretty crowded, and you don't want to end up as a hood ornament in somebody's Subaru Brat.
No, there's a few campgrounds up there that people are going in and out of, so it's can be fairly busy up that way.
So let's see. Brian, having trouble finding a way to order online. Is there anywhere to pick up proper MVUM maps along the tour? That you can go to any Forest Service headquarters, but they may not have the ones other than the forest that they're in. I know when you go to Chalice, you can get about half of them in Chalice. You can get a whole bunch of them in Pocatello. So, yeah, you can do that. The problem is you may be leaving town kind of early. You may get in too late, and you may be leaving early the next morning. In Salmon, it's not too far out to where stuff is, so it is possible to find it along the way. But if you write to any of those agencies, they will, the MVUMs are, if I'm not mistaken, free when you show up in person. Is that right? I've never paid for one.
They're free to download too.
Yeah. So you should be able to download them and print them. I'm sure if you write to them, they might charge you postage or something, but I've never had any trouble getting them. I used to keep a big pile of them out here. I used to put them out in the shop, and if people ask for them, I give them. But then what happened is it's hard to keep enough. If everybody knows you're the source for them, then you get tagged a lot. But I've never had any trouble getting those things. And I would, I've told everybody the same thing because a lot of people ask Dylan's question, and it's not a bad question at all. For MVUMs, just get everything along the way. Everything that looks like it's in the general tour corridor, just get the MVUM. If you don't need it, you can put it on a picnic table or something under a rock. And then as for downloading maps in CalTopo or Avenza or whatever you want to do, again, there is a tour corridor. You can see it right on that big map that we put on the first page. It's all throughout eastern and central Idaho. What I would do is I would just make sure I printed a map that went at least 50 miles either side of what looks to be the tour corridor, and you are going to be just fine. On that topic, and I'll have Jim speak to this in a second too, I had some guys the other day that were DMing me about waypoints. Why I don't think this waypoint's in the right place, and I'm a little confused about what to do here. It's easy to have that happen when you're looking at a map or you're looking at a satellite photo or something. Remember, you have multiple streams of information that you're going to be using to navigate. It's not just the waypoint. It's not just the map. There's also a route description. There's also what your eyeballs are seeing right in front of you. So you have to be able to integrate all of that to navigate. So what I tell a lot of people is it'll make more sense when you get here. And rarely have I had anybody that didn't agree, yeah, when I saw it on the ground, it made more sense. So as you all are doing your navigation, remember, it's not just one source that you have. You have multiple sources. Yeah. And even on the mystery sections, I mean, you guys have seen the write-up. You know what they look like. There's plenty of information there. There's trail numbers, trail names, and there's even an occasional latitude and longitude just to make sure that you're in the right place. We give you a map that goes with it. Then if you have your map that you downloaded and you have the MVUMs, you're going to have to spend some time figuring some stuff out, but that's part of the fun, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. I love looking at maps.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we wanted to introduce to this, because we had guys that were doing two things that nothing wrong with it. It's certainly not against the rules, but it's a little bit antithetical to what this is supposed to be all about. We had guys who are pre-riding. By the way, we have that this year. Even though there's a severe penalty for pre-riding a lot of the route, we have teams that are out right now trying to wire it. And it's I'm telling you what, it's you're going to have to ride some extra stuff if you do that. But the worst part of that is it's not as much fun if you've done that. Like these mystery sections, you're cheating yourself if you're out trying to figure out what that stuff is, because the coolest part about, especially this year, is you're going to ride into some stuff and you're going to look at that and go, I cannot believe that I'm here. And that's going to be a sentiment you're going to have time after time after time. Now, you're going to be scared shitless some of the time, too, because you think you've seen Side Hill in the past. Wait till you see what we've got for you this year. But it's fun, and the funnest time is the first time that you see that stuff. And when I put this thing together, I put it together assuming that most people weren't going to do extensive pre-riding of all this stuff. So pre-ride all you want, as long as you're willing to, ride the penalty sections to make up for it. But if I were you guys, I wouldn't be worried about trying to wire this thing. That's just go out and ride it. Have some fun. Stop and look at the map. Pound some water while you're looking at the map. Take some cool photos. Smell the roses along the way. This is fun, man. It's the coolest thing that you will ever do on a motorcycle. And when I'm done, I'm always a little bit sad. I mean, I'm glad that I'm not getting pounded anymore. But I'm sad because I had a lot of fun for 7, 8, 9, 10 days, however long it took. And it's like doing a climb, man. Once you walk back down to the flat world, it just, you kind of have it's a little bit of a bummer after a while. You miss having that high adventure. But you should not view the time that you're going to stop to figure out where I'm at and where I want to go as a bad thing. We built that into this. So on these mystery days, I'm assuming you're going to spend some time stopping and looking at maps, and we built that in when we designed these days. You got plenty of time to figure out how to navigate. Do you guys agree with that, with what you did?
I would say so. I mean, there's plenty of time to, and it's, when you guys see the route description and you get to a junction, Martin does a great job of putting into words of what you need to do. I even told him after we sent what we had. Yeah, I was like, you have a way with words, Martin. I mean, to make it much more clear on what what you're supposed to be doing, where you're at, how to reference where you're at. And I think it's great with the lat longs. It's going to give you the idea, yeah, we're in the right place where maybe it's confusing. But at the same time, like when, when day 8 went sideways last year and I was completely off. We were, like you said, it was stuff that you hadn't been in 15 years. It was just looking at the map and going, finding a trailhead and then riding the trail to the end. Even with the waypoints, guys, like, I think there's sports in there where it's 15, 20 miles to the next waypoint. It's not like it's right in front of you. Like, you're going to see the trail. That's the trail you got to ride, and you're going to ride it to the end. I think someone here posted, like, the best thing you got is the trail in front of your front tire. And the waypoints and the written directions that you get on the mystery days are going to be your confirmation of where you should be going. Study the routes that you're given with the waypoints and understand, like, you know what's kind of coming. Like, at least in the back of your mind, you got a little bit of it. Like, all right, I know on this day, when I get to here, we're gonna have to. I got to be cautious. I got to make a decision on exactly the right trail to take. It's part of the adventure, man. That's what I put in the post the other day on the website. Like, you got to go enjoy the struggle, enjoy the celebration you're gonna have when you get through the first mystery day, and you get through the desert and make it to Big Southern Butte. That's what makes it even that much more than just being the excitement of riding your bike. Now you're kind of conquering each day and every challenge point along the way. Every mystery route along the way. I think that's just going to add to it and make it that much more of a memorable event for you. So
I sent some of the mystery day stuff to Sean Smith because he rides and saws a lot, so he's out working some of that stuff right now, trying to make sure it's sawed. And the good news is the stuff he's ridden so far, he says it's pretty clear. So there's still some snow in places, but the sawing shouldn't be a problem. So these early mystery days, I was a little worried about that. But he sent me back a trip report, and I lost count of the number of exclamation points that were at the end of his sentences in this little trip report about, I rode this trail today. He was pretty impressed by just sort of, the ability required to ride the trails and how spectacular they are. There's some really, really good stuff. And next year, I'm going to go through this whole song and dance again because I want the people that ride the tour the final year to have the same opportunity that people have this year. So next year, there's going to be new mystery section for you guys, just in case what we did this year gets out. So I think that I think that's the best part of it. Kind of days where you don't know where you're going. You just got to get on the bike and well, I got a motor. I'll get there eventually. Mm-hmm.
It was some of the best days I had. I'll tell you that. Once you get over the, not to take up more time here, but once you get past the fact of, like, you're out there, you're on your own, or you're with your team, whatever it is, you got to be comfortable with that. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable being out in the middle of nowhere, then it's going to be a challenge to get through, guys. Like, you're out there. You're way out there at times, but that's part of the adventure, just being like, you don't know, like, what's coming next. Like, I'm with you, Martin. Like, the best stuff is that first time. Was it Moose Creek on what we had on day 6 last year, that you just go ride it and see if it's open?
Mm-hmm.
I was so fired up after that. I was like, that's fucking awesome. Like, we're pulling trails out of the hat.
That trail's a cool trail.
Yeah. And I was like, that was freaking awesome. Just pulling out of the hat. We're trying to find the one quad trail that doesn't exist. I'm in the middle of some meadow trying to, like, figure out where this thing went. And I think eventually I'm just like, I can't find it. I'm going the other end to see if I can find another end. And, and I think at that point we're like, let's go check this trail out. Let's go see if that's open. That was freaking blast, Mm-hmm. I think day 6 we kept being that way. Probably, the only thing that probably changed my mood for that day was going down Ditch Creek. I was wiped. That's probably what I think I said when the first time I was on was like, that was the day that I was. That's when I started. That's the first day I doubted if I was going to make it, and I think I got there and was listening to the post you had. And I was like, screw it, let's just keep freaking going. Let's just get done. Let's get to the end of the day. And it was freaking blast, man. On those days, like just picking your way across. Yeah, you're tired and exhausted. You get pissed off. You want to freaking call and cuss out Martin, but then at the end of the day, at the same time, you're like, freaking, that was an awesome freaking route. That was an awesome route, And so, there'll be some good stuff, guys. Like it'll be awesome.
Yeah, when I was climbing hard, usually you don't do that stuff solo. I did a lot of it solo. I soloed some big stuff, but it's a lot easier if you have a partner in climbing because it ups the safety level quite a bit, and you can do harder stuff if you have a partner. And I am so used to being screamed at by people in situations like that because I totally get it. I get why people are like really pissy. You can feel it through the PLB. I mean, you can feel the PLB about to burst into flames in your hand when you get some of these messages. I totally get it. As long as you're cool later, when you calm down, if everything's okay, because I completely get that. I understand that in the heat of the moment, sometimes you're all excited, and I've heard it all. She sees this stuff too, and it's pretty entertaining sometimes. I've been called an asshole every way you can be called an asshole, and it's okay as long as you later on reflect and see that.
Reflect that you're as wonderful as you are.
Oh, you hear that? Try being in a band with her, man. It's terrible. But anyway, you're gonna suffer some. You need to wrap your mind around that. You're gonna be uncomfortable, and that brings us back to where we started. The more comfortable you are with being uncomfortable, you're going to be too hot. You're going to be too cold. You're going to be too tired. You're going to be too thirsty. All of that stuff is going to happen to you. And the thing that denotes the line between success and failure in the tour is, can you push through that stuff? When you are feeling like, I know that it's 30 miles into a hamburger in a hotel room if I skip this trail. If you can make the decision, no, I'm going to go down the next trail, you're going to be just fine. If you can ride a trail when the sun is going down that you've never been down before, but you've heard is kind of hard, and you're okay with it, then you're going to be just fine. That's the thing that you have to be able to do. It's not about your ability to ride a motorcycle. It's about your ability to corral your emotions and focus your intellect on, look, I got to get 30 more miles down this trail. I don't care what I have to do it. I'm not going to try to go fast. I may have to drag my bike over some logs. But if you can just think that way, it's one trail at a time. Do what I got to do to get from point A to point B down this trail. Then we'll see how it goes after that. If you can put that together long enough, you're going to be just fine. Reduce it to the task that's right in front of you. Anything else to add?
No, I think that's good advice right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, all right. So we come to that time of night where I tell you all every week, and I don't know why you do it, you've wasted a perfectly good hour of your life that you can't get back with one knucklehead, a hot chick, and two guys that are studs on motorcycles right here. So at least not all of it was wasted. So 3/4 of it was worth your time. The other fourth, I don't know what the hell you all are thinking every week. I want to again thank my co-host tonight, Jim Spooner, who is a guy I have a huge amount of respect for what he did this year. I used to think my solos of the route were something to be proud of until I saw what he did. He blew everything I ever did away. It was awesome what you did last year. And then I want to thank Andrew Hickson for all the help he's given us. Every time I reach out to this guy, he's back to me in less than a few hours, usually in 5 minutes. This is what I think we need to do. And he has given you guys, these two guys have cooked up some stuff that I'm envious of. It is absolutely fantastic. And the amount of work that these guys put into this for no pay, nothing other than they wanted to help, it's just one of the most commendable things I've ever seen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, both of you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. And I mean, I just want to say the amount of work it went in to do one day. Guys, I mean, this gentleman here's put in hours, days, weeks, months, years to get the other 11 days dialed. Yeah. And so it gives me a ton of perspective of the amount of time and effort that you've put in, in the last, 16 years or whatever it is now to get to where it is now. So that's just fact. I mean, that's just me trying to work through what we did last year, Andrew, and I mean, Andrew had a big involvement of what we fixed for last year.
Yep.
On day 9, and it sounds easy. I mean, it's definitely easier when it's in our backyard and know it. I can't imagine, all the stuff that you've been working when, like you said, you're a whole day's drive away from the second half of the route. And so thank you to you too, Martin, and thank you to Megan to letting you keep doing it for a couple more years. Because I'm in for 2023. I'm back in. I don't know.
So,
I think
are you
Dad's
coming
going to
with
be
your
in.
dad?
I think we're going to – I'm telling like it's last year we're fucking
yeah.
been doing it. We're going to give it a whirl. Like –
You got to get
Why
Tony.
not?
You got to get Tony going.
That's what I'm trying to get my brother to do it, but he runs his own metal fabrication business, and he's it's hard for him to think about shutting down shop for that long. So we'll keep pushing, but either way, I'm back in to go punish myself for 13 more days. So there'll be a few extra challenge sections since I'm a little into the know at this point.
No, if you skip a year, we drop a lot of that stuff. So by the time you come back, I mean, you'll have to ride some bonus stuff up in your area. But
I'll just do the first one.
Yep.
That's the only one I'd do. But we'll have a few twists and turns so you get it original too, and we're going to try to keep Andrew out of the mystery stuff as much as we can this year so that we don't have to torture him too much. But I can tell you right now, Sean Smith's a pretty good rider. I like the dude a lot, and he rode that stuff, and the trip report he sent back is entertaining as hell to read because it's pretty clear he had a really good time, but it was like, oh my gosh. There was a lot of that in it. So some of these days, when you first get the route description, you go, well, at 200 miles, how hard can it be? I got your hard swinging down low, baby. All right, you guys, thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All right.
Martin.
Cheers, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, guys.